Hey, man, good to see you, man. Yesterday, for the first time in really full pads and getting down to some serious hitting, what did that feel like for you guys out there on the practice field yesterday?
Felt really good. Obviously, we haven't done it in a while, but felt good. Everybody stayed up how we should, and no injuries, accidents, but a good, tough physical practice.
We'll go to David Ubben.
Matthew, with so much experience coming back from this group last year, where have you seen the biggest progression as you guys have looked at the first week of practice and what you were used to last year? Where have you seen the biggest growth in this defensive line group?
Just as far as progression on the whole team, I mean, I've seen progression really everywhere. We have older receivers, returning quarterback with the return offense coordinator, a lot of experience, tough O linemen. Uh, we have a deep running back group on the D line, on the defensive side of the ball. On the defensive line, we have returners, we have big guys who have added muscle and become more fast, more quick. And then we have returning linebacker, very experienced secondary. So all around on the team, there's a lot of improvement. There's a lot of return. There's a lot of standing out. As far as just the D line, like you said, we have a new coach. Coach Brumbaugh has been on us hard, on us about the details, and every day we take it in stride and we become better and better than we were the next day. And we have guys who listen and who retain instruction and are getting better because of the coaching, getting better because of the experience. It's been good.
We'll go to Jimmy Himes, followed by Blake Topmeyer.
Matthew, last year, the defensive line, it looked like it was going into the season a bit of a concern. Do you feel like with what you guys accomplished that you maybe overachieved as a defensive line last year?
I mean, I don't feel that way because going into the season, I knew the circumstances were at hand, as did everybody, but I didn't have anything but high expectations for us. I mean, if anything, we underachieved because we had a very, very high goals for ourselves, regardless of the situation. And, we didn't meet them, such as being the number one defense in the country, number one defensive line in the country, number one team in the country. That didn't happen, so we still have further to go, no matter what.
What do you feel like you need to improve upon this year?
Pretty broad question. I could point to a lot of things that we could improve on, but I'll point to like the biggest things. I think the biggest things we can improve on is just consistency throughout the entire game, and also throughout an entire season because each game kind of translates to the entire season. I mean, as it kind of showed, like our season kind of translated into that last game for us. And I could dare say that, each game translated into that season. So consistency. And with that consistency comes throughout a game, throughout a season, not losing your technique, not losing your endurance, your mental endurance and your physical endurance. And then, of course, plenty of technical things that can be improved on day by day, week by week, opponent by opponent.
Blake?
Matthew, I'm sure you've seen the NCAA's rule that seniors could return next season and play essentially a second senior season. Have you thought about what that might mean for you, whether that would be something you might be interested in doing?
I mean, I haven't thought about it too much at all. Try to take things day by day. Right now, we're looking at just getting ready each day, getting better in camp, and then gradually, but not too gradually, getting into South Carolina prep. So that's mostly what I'm thinking about. Just going against your everyday opponent, which is yourself. You want to be better than the next day, and then going against our formidable upcoming opponent in South Carolina's football team.
We'll go to Patrick Brown, followed by Gustavo.
Matthew, you mentioned Coach Brumbaugh being on you guys hard. How would you kind of describe his coaching style? Having you only got 2 practices with him in the spring, how would you kind of describe how he is on the practice field through the first 4 or 5 practices you guys have had this preseason?
Well, even before the spring ball started, this was a guy who was meticulous about the details. He knows his stuff. He's coached plenty of good football players on plenty of good football teams. Excuse me. So, he knows his stuff, very meticulous about the details, and he didn't vary from that at all. He came to us and he told us, how he was going to be, and he's been consistent with that. And how he is, he's, drilling in the details. In fact, he texted me actually all of us a few moments ago, just, with a couple clips for us to look at going into, meetings and practice and whatnot, cares about us, cares about the game. And like I said, I really couldn't overemphasize it enough, very meticulous about the details.
What did you know about him before he got hired, or when he was hired? What did you know about him before he even got here?
Honestly, not too much, but I know him very well now. So,
Gustavo?
Matthew, you always had good performance against Florida. And this year you guys going to face the Gators in the last game of the season at Neyland Stadium, in your senior game. And despite you coming back or not, that's, probably going to be your senior game. How are your thoughts about, maybe finishing your career as a Vol against the Florida Gators, which is an opponent that you always done so well?
Well, I do like playing Florida, for several reasons, as a Tennessee Volunteer, no matter what sport you're playing, maybe you don't even play a sport, you generally don't like Florida. But it's going to be very exciting, especially playing them in Neyland at that last game, just, the atmosphere, knowing that you're home, is kind of what you come to the University of Tennessee. You kind of come, you play football for those big games and those big moments. And, that'll be quite a way to end the regular season,
All right, we'll go to Teresa Walker, AP, followed by Trey Wallace.
Afternoon, Matthew. With talking about last season, what might be the biggest lesson that you and your teammates take from last year coming into this year, and what needs to be different as you try to build up any momentum from the way last season ended?
As far as momentum, just those last those last several games where we went on our run, we were playing hard, consistent, as far as clean plays, which we define as just plays without any mistakes or errors. We had a higher percentage of clean plays, more consistently running to the ball, running fast, buying in as a defense and realizing that each tier of the defense really kind of coincides with the next tier of the defense. So that's a mentality that I feel like we are still continuing to have. And then just to build up on that, we need to continue to have good unity as a defense, recognize who our leaders are. And, and if you, maybe aren't a quote unquote leader at that point, following your leader in the right way, and just becoming better as a defense as far as the details, as far as techniques, and as far as taking coaching. All of that will coincide with excelling and winning.
Trey?
Matthew, how have you tried to lead with your teammates, setting an example towards, COVID restrictions that are going on right now, guys not potentially going out and being out late at night, wearing their masks, doing the right things that you guys have to do to get to the 2020 season? Have you talked to your teammates about that? What has that reception been?
I have talked to my teammates about that. As for me, like a lot of guys, I have a lot going on, so I don't really go out much. But, I talk to, my teammates who don't want to be restricted to their apartments in the dormitory. And we just make sure that we wear our masks and make sure that we're not around too many people. And if we are around people at all, to make sure that you're 6 feet or more apart. And then, you know, having your mask on in the facility is just a good example, even though we get tested weekly. You know, excuse me, making sure that, you know, we're doing everything that we can to stay healthy in general, you know, doing certain things, maybe, you know, eating poorly or whatever the case may be can make you more susceptible to any illness. So those are just a few things. And leading by example is just keeping your mask on, not going out too much. And if you do go out, then, you know, just reminder like, hey, you know, not only have your mask on, have it over your nose and everything. And, you know, don't hang around people who refuse to wear a mask or anything like that. You know, we have bigger fish to fry than a lot of people who maybe don't have anything to lose necessarily.
We'll go to Vince Ferrara, followed by Luis Fernandez.
Matt, I know it's early in camp and you're predominantly at end and he's on the offensive line at guard, but have you had any battles at all with Cade Mays? What's your impression of him if you have?
Oh, I've gotten, you know, because we have sub packages, so of course I'm able to rush inside, play inside. So, I mean, yeah, and, you know, he's an athletic guy with good hands, fast hands and good feet. Get a couple of matchups, you know, we'll probably get, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 matchups a week. Very good football player. I've gotten to know him personally just throughout summer workouts and everything. Cool guy. We've gotten to hang out a little bit outside of the facility, you know, over the summer. You know, I like Cade Mays a lot. Not to mention he's a very good football player and gets me better. I try to get him better.
Luis?
Matthew, you're a month away from the start of the season. What has preparation looked like this year? You guys didn't know who that first team you're playing was going to be for the longest time. How does this compare to years past when you've known, you know, who you're playing months ahead of time?
I must say, like, in a lot of ways, it kind of throws you off a little bit because when you think about it, it's just like, wow. I want to say today's August 26th. We're a whole month away from, you know, the start of the season, but we're about to be 6 practices into camp. So, you know, that's definitely not normal. But, you know, just try to just stay focused on a couple of things to keep you your head straight. A couple of things being, you know, always be competing against that one opponent, which is yourself, you know, constantly trying to be better than the next day. And that kind of eliminates the uncertainty and the fact that the game is kind of far off in the future. And then the second thing is just, you know, your love of the game. You know, when you love playing football, when you love doing what you do, you know, you understand that there's an opponent coming and everything, and that the opponent is very formidable, being that we're playing all SEC games. But, you know, you can kind of enjoy practice, enjoy that moment, enjoy the competition in general, because, you know, I'm thankful that it's been afforded to us and thankful that we can be safe doing it.
Thank you.
We'll go to David Ubben and Jimmy Himes.
Matthew, a couple questions. One, when you mentioned that Coach Brumbaugh was so nailed in on details, when were some of the first times that he got really sort of down and detailed with you guys that impressed you? And also, what have you made of the newcomers on the defensive line so far? Any guys standing out as well?
I believe like his second day here, after he introduced himself and kind of we got to know each other, I want to say he pulled up the Georgia game. And with all due respect to a formidable opponent in Georgia, you know, we could have done some things differently in that game so that it would have a different outcome. He pointed out, you know, some, you know, things that may have been overlooked, you know, that could have changed the game. It could have really impacted the game just with a few details. And, you know, that kind of shows that he had already watched the game, you know. He had went through with a fine comb. Yeah, you know, that's pretty impressive just from a player to coach standpoint. And, you know, it's also good to hear that, you know, that you can improve, you know. And then as far as the young guys, we have Dom, Big O, RJ. They're all showing up every day, getting the work in. They transform their bodies, looking real good, real strong, more and more like SEC linemen. They've impressed me in many ways, and they're going to have great careers ahead of them, great year ahead of them as well.
Thanks.
Matthew, there was an NBA player that said while he was in the bubble that he in Orlando that he kind of suffered from some anxiety and some depression. And I wonder if as you've tried to isolate yourself from this virus, have you encountered any of those emotions yourself?
Just to clarify, anxiety and depression, I feel like are much, much more than emotions. Those are real mental states and things that a lot of people have trouble with. And I don't want to categorize myself with somebody who's experiencing that, because that would be me taking away from their experience. I know a lot of people who have anxiety and depression, and I wouldn't ever want to say, oh, I'm anxious and I'm depressed, because those aren't words that describe me, and that takes away from their state of being, which they have a right to be in, which they have a right to recover from and get better from. I actually know that story from the NBA player, and he just said that just being around basketball all the time and not having any other release kind of had him stressed and anxious. And, you know, I do understand that feeling in the sense that I can look at it and acknowledge it, and I know what he's talking about. For me, I have a lot of stuff going on, and you know, sometimes I feel great and sometimes I don't feel great. But when it all comes down to, you know, I'm all right. And anybody who does feel like they're anxious or depressed, like, you know, I try to speak to them if they're on this team, and if I know them, I try to help them the best I can to be, you know, a friend to them, you know, a buddy for them, you know, whatever they need from me. So to answer your question, like, yeah, everybody gets, you know, those emotions, but not everybody's in that state of mind. And that state of mind, you know, and I don't feel like you're disrespecting it, but that state of mind needs to be respected, because, you know, it's a serious thing.
All right, we're going to go to Rick Russo for last question.
Matthew, the new seating guidelines were announced yesterday. Stadium capacity 25%, a little over 25,000 in there for home games. You played in that stadium when it's been packed. What do you think it's going to be like with just 25,000 in there?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I need to get some water. But yeah, I have played in that stadium when it's packed. I think one of the loudest it's ever been was last year versus South Carolina. There was a third down. I couldn't hear my linebackers. I couldn't hear my coaches. I couldn't hear myself think. I think they ended up calling timeout, and they just got even louder. It was great. But whatever 25,000 show up, they're going to be loud as well. And there's going to be plenty of people watching television, listening to the radio, rooting for us as well. And we'll have plenty of support and plenty of love from the fans, from young children who aspire to be, you know, whatever they want to be. And, you know, we're trying to go out here and not only, you know, play football for each other, you know, for ourselves, for this university, but also just inspire young people and, you know, really try to showcase our skills for the fans, you know, whomever shows up or whomever is watching on TV. It's going to be different, but it's still an honor and a privilege to play football for the University of Tennessee. So can't take too much from it.
All right, thank you so much, Matt.